51st State?
Yeah. So 51st State is a game I picked up a little while ago. Specifically, it's 51st State, the master set, and I'll dig into what that means shortly.
Ooh, that sounds like there's a lot here to dig into.
Yeah,
I guess.
a bit of BDSM, as it were.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
We don't
I
talk
don't
about
know.
the subset. That's a bit of a weird.
Yeah.
That's an expansion.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, the thing is that they released an ultimate set, so I don't know what comes in that one. Now,
Oh, no.
now I'm curious.
Oh,
okay.
no.
Well,
But 51st State is an engine builder or a tableau builder style of game where essentially every single turn you are drafting cards and you are getting resources and you are using those resources to either convert into other resources or using those resources to then play cards in front of you, which then allow you to get more resources, play more cards, get points, so on and so
I
forth.
just want to say, to like a gateway gamer, and you saying resources about 8 times in that sentence, you can kind of pick up what type of game this is.
It does feel very, very Euro-y straight away from the start.
It is very Euro-y, but here's the thing. It's Wingspan, but in the Neuroshima Hex universe. So the
What does that mean?
Okay, so the Neuroshima Hex universe, to put it bluntly, is similar to the Mad Max universe. Okay, so post-dystopian, you have factions or clans who are all convinced that they are the future of the human race. They have modded vehicles, modded weaponry, and they go at it at each other.
Great.
In this game, but in this game, it's basically, it's only themed in the Neuroshima Hex universe, but in the end, it is just an engine builder.
Yep.
And I definitely do not mean to sound dismissive of the game because I absolutely loved it. So just to describe what you have in front of you, what you will have is you will have a board. The board has 3 rows where you're playing your cards. Top row relates to production, so that's how you get your different resources. Some of the resources are things like weaponry, jerry cans of fuel, gears for
making
things, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Your second row is called your feature row. And these relate to things such as one-off really powerful abilities.
Right.
Or they may be an ongoing benefit, particularly around guarding your resources, and I'll come back to that in a sec. And the very final row is pretty much about scoring points, where it's called your action row. And you play your action cards, and then it gives you additional actions that you can play during the round.
Yep.
So, like I said, most of the actions are around scoring points. Some of them are around sort of great resource conversion bonuses.
Yep.
So typically, some resource converting to certain resources would be rather expensive. These cards make them a lot cheaper. And on your turn, what you were doing one of the available actions to you. Most of the actions can only be taken once per turn, and then it's a race.
Are the actions dictated by the cards that you have in your hand, or are there things that you can just choose to do on the board?
It's mostly by the cards in your hand and your starting faction ability.
Okay.
So there are 6 factions in the game, and every single faction is asymmetric.
So can you play up to 6 players, or is it
four
player?
play up to 4 players, but you get 6 factions.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Is it one of those games where you just play as 2 players, really? Like you just play 2
It
players?
is, all right. And again, this is one of the comparisons to Wingspan. I'm not gonna keep coming back to Wingspan too much, but I'm just gonna use it as a basis because Wingspan is the darling of the hobby. It definitely has brought in a number of non-gamers into the hobby, and I think it's a good anchor point.
I think I should just very quickly point out that if this is the first time that you're hearing about this game called Wingspan, essentially it is a nature-themed bird-themed card game engine builder game. Play this bird, and then every other bird in this row lays you eggs, and then you can use those eggs to then get more food, to get more birds. It's the exact same thing, but it's basically one of the best-selling games, really, of the last 5 years. I would say.
If a game ranks in similar lists as Monopoly, it's a hugely successful game. Yeah. But again, the comparisons to Wingspan again. There are 3 rows, just like in Wingspan. You are using resources to play cards, just like in Wingspan.
Yeah.
You are using those cards to take additional actions, just like in Wingspan. The differences here, though, the one thing that I really didn't like about Wingspan is that Wingspan comes with this massive deck, and then the expansions just add to it. You have this huge stack of cards, and it gets really wobbly. So if you're waiting on particular cards, or if you're trying to get an ability to fire off, it's often really difficult to do.
That's actually been my biggest problem with Wingspan, is that I can't cycle the deck fast enough to find cards that will actually help me make an engine.
But in 51st State, the deck is much smaller.
Right.
Now, granted, playing it 2-player, I play this with my son, and we've never actually recycled the deck, but we've gotten very close to getting to the bottom of the deck more than once.
Yep.
Okay. And again, this is just using the base set. We haven't dug into the expansions just yet. But going back to what the actual game is, in the end, it's a race game. Okay. Like all good engine builders, it's a case of, is my engine more efficient than your engine, and then where we're going to go. And you play the game until someone reaches 25 points. Once that threshold has been hit, you play out the rest of the round as possible, as much as you can.
As usual.
Yeah. So there's no guarantee that you're going to win once you get to 25. So the last game I played yesterday with my son, he got to 25 and I was still on 8.
Okay.
The score finished though 44-42.
Right. Okay.
All right, because my last round was just banking points like a madman, whereas he was trying to rush towards the end of the game.
Yeah.
Look, it is a fantastic game as far as engine builders go. It's not doing necessarily anything new.
That was my next question, was, does this provide anything unique, or does it just kind of, tighten up the engine building experience?
I think it doesn't do a great deal of things new, bar maybe 2 things. So the asymmetric abilities are cool.
Okay.
But there are other games that give you asymmetric abilities, such as Race for the Galaxy, particularly with the Ambition expansion. It does that, and I'd argue that does it better.
Do they start with different production qualities at the start of the game?
Yes.
So very similar to like It's a Wonderful World, etc.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
However, one thing it does, which is really great, is every single round, whatever resources you haven't spent, they are gone. Resources do not carry from round to round. And this is where the feature cards come in. Some of the feature cards let you bank resources.
Right, okay.
And that's where it can be brutal, because the last thing that makes this unique, and I think what makes it great, is but basically the cards, or rather I'm going to say two more things. The cards actually have 3 uses. You can play cards to your tableau. You can play cards as deals. And what they do, they give you ongoing production bonuses. Sometimes they give you point bonuses every single round.
Yeah. Cool.
Or you can destroy cards, either from your hand or from your opponent's tableau.
So a card that I've put in my tableau that's serving me,
you
could just destroy it.
I can destroy it. Yes, that's right.
That's cool.
So my son did that to me in our first game yesterday. He saw I had one card, and he realized it was about to cause a huge explosion. So to set the scene,
that's awesome.
My economy was heavily based around gears, and I was able to produce from memories. I think it was
many
6 or 7
gears.
around, which is just an obscene amount.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was going to do with them, and then I happened to draft the right card, which basically said, if you just bank gears onto this card, you get 3 points every single time. And even though I could only do it once per round, it didn't matter. This was round 2, and it just meant that I was looking at likely 9 or 12 points,
which sounds like a lot in a 44-point game.
In a game where you want to get to 25, that's huge.
Yeah.
The moment he saw me play it, he just went, "Yeah, I'm destroying that."
Yeah.
Immediately, and that was it. It just
could you
ruined
have
me.
hidden that from him and just played it later?
In hindsight, I should have.
Okay.
In hindsight, I should have waited for him to pass and then played it.
So when someone passes, you can still play out your round.
That's right. Yes.
So it's you take a turn, I take a turn.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. It sounds like there's a lot of great decision points to be made.
There really, really is. And again, because I'm going to keep coming back to this, because that deck is so small, and because it doesn't, and because it is small, it doesn't take you very long to get a feel for some of the cards, and it doesn't shy away from the fact that it is a lot more balanced than other games. So much so that there are duplicates of certain cards because they are that good.
Right.
So why not have more than one of them? And so it just means that it's easier to grok the deck after a couple of games. And yes, it can mean that once you've seen that deck, you then turn around and say, well, I've seen everything the game has to offer. this is where all the little expansions come in.
But I felt like
part of the master set.
Race for the Galaxy a little bit. I felt like there was so many strategies with that, and then that was it.
Yeah, but I do completely agree with you, and this is why I like Race for the Galaxy with the Ambition expansion, where you get the you get additional cards,
powers, yeah.
You get asymmetric powers, but you also get all the gold cards that come with it as well. But yeah, look, 51st State. My son plays it with me. You could absolutely teach it to 8, 9, 10-year-olds, and they would pick it up no problems.
That's really good to hear. I would like to point out to people, if you're like kind of understanding what I guess you could say, like what an engine builder really is. Engine builders are really good gateway games because they generally start with very small decisions. Hey, I don't really have a lot, but my faction ability produces, let's say, gears, like you said, Damien.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, well, then I know, all right, maybe I'll focus on some gears to start with. Oh, I've got some gear cards. Maybe I'll make a choice on that. And then I start getting more cards to go, hey, if you have X amount of gears, you get points.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, cool, I'll start doing that. And that's why engine builders become very good gateway games, I've found, just for those reasons of like, there are some, like It's a Wonderful World, where they basically say, here are all the decisions, try and make the best of it. But things like Wingspan, things like this one obviously sound like they start small and then ramp up pretty big.
Yeah, good engine builder. It's easy to find two cards that work together in some sort of combo. Yeah. And then as you discover that, you feel smart by linking those two things together.
Gizmos is another good engine builder, which I think is really good for that kind of thing.
Definitely, that's a great gateway one.
Gizmos,
I mean, even the game that we reviewed last week was Little Factory.
Little Factory.
That's another example of a really simple engine builder where you are taking cards to then convert to other resources, but ultimately your goal is to then get more cards that will either get you more resources or points.
Yeah, exactly.
Listening back on last week's podcast, I really didn't explain it well enough that it's like, hey, if you get a very basic, the idea of the engine building is that you start very basic and then you can follow a tree. And then Little Factory, the advantage that we didn't talk about is the fact that if you're going to trade that, if you're like, I can't get that building, it's like, well, then just trade that resource for all of the money and start down a different tree towards those buildings. And we didn't talk about that, but I think that's...
I was going to say that, but I didn't listen to it. So
don't worry, you're joining my wife in the podcast that she doesn't listen to that, so it's all fine. Anyway, but that is 51st State, what sounds like a really good engine builder and a gateway step. We may have to play it one time and maybe introduce that to
Sorry, just quickly, I said I was going to swing back to the master set. So there's two versions of the game that's available now. The latest Kickstarter is the Ultimate set that just dropped. You don't need that. It is pretty. It is very expensive. The master set comes with, I believe, all but the very latest expansion. That is a ton of game that is available retail. It is also available in the seconds market. Check it out. The original 51st State is out of print and it's been rehashed so many times.
Okay.
To the listeners out there who are interested, aim for the master set. There are a ton of copies out there.
So why is it called 51st State? Because I keep thinking 51st Dates and Drew Barrymore's not in this.
I don't know enough about the Neuroshima Hex universe, but it has to do with that.
Because it's really weird. I keep hearing 51st Dates in my head as you're saying.
Well, if you know why it's called the 51st State, write it down in the YouTube comments below. Go to our Discord community and write it in the podcast.
Is Hawaii the 51st State?
I thought so. I thought it was Puerto Rico or something like that.
Yeah.
We're trying to get into something like that. I can't remember.
Let's not get stuck into US politics because honestly,
let's not
it
get
gets
into
grey.
US politics.
It's very grey.
Look, let's take a sidestep though, and let's go away from US politics and the 51st State. But let's go. Let's have